I received a comment from somebody who, and this is a comment that I've received from a lot of people like throughout the years, who was basically like, what do you do when you have that patch of skin on your face that just like won't take makeup no matter what you do? And this can be like a little bit different for different people. Like sometimes it just won't take makeup. Sometimes like you can apply your foundation, it'll take the foundation, but then when you're going in with your things like bronzer and blush, it starts to kind of like pick up in one specific area. So today I wanted to show you what you can do to fix that. It's a little bit more work, but I think it's pretty effective. Now, there are a couple other little tips and tricks that I personally think are a little bit less favorable when it comes to this like problem. So I'll save those for the end, but we're just gonna get right into it. Okay, so the first thing that I want you to keep in mind when you have this kind of a problem is skincare. It's like the first, anytime you have any kind of a makeup problem, you got to go back to skincare. Like, what are you doing? If you have a specific area that is not holding on to makeup, maybe it's extra dry, maybe it's extra flaky, maybe it's I don't know, it just like won't take. It just won't take. Look at your exfoliating. Are you exfoliating? Maybe you're not. Maybe you need to incorporate something like a gentle AHA, mandelic acid, lactic acid, something like that, to gently exfoliate the skin because you have specific areas that are a little bit more like problematic in terms of dryness, flakiness, acne maybe. So it really comes down to beginning there, like begin from the beginning, okay? Go to the start, the very start. But however, if you've already like done that, if you've already like checked out your skincare routine, if you've gone through all the things, maybe you've gone to a dermatologist and you're like, I don't understand, what is this? Let's get into how to attack it finally here today with makeup. So this is my honorary patch that we're going to be addressing today. I hope that you can see it well enough. Maybe if you can see it a little bit better when I turn that light off. This little area I just removed my makeup. So this technique that I'm going to be using today shares a lot of similarities to my spot concealing video technique tutorial. So I'm going to put that up here if you are also interested in that. So let's get right into it. This is what I want. Obviously you can tell that I have my whole head on. I have my whole head on. I have my makeup done. I've done my whole face, okay? Full face, all right? I've got foundation, concealer, blush, bronzer, contour, everything. I even have some powder in the center of my face. That I would like you to skip. What I want you to do is do all of your creams. Do all of your creams first, okay? Have them finished. Ignore that spot, okay? When you're applying your foundation, your blush, you're gonna see that like, as you're applying normally, you're blending everything normally, that area is pulling off, okay? Ignore it. I don't care. Ignore it. Now, what we're going to do is it's going to be a little bit of an art experiment. Depending on where your specific patch of skin is, you're going to want to basically like match that, like color match that area, okay? So it's a little bit of paint by numbers. For instance, mine is on my cheek. Now this is a tricky spot. This is a tricky spot because I have blended my contour and my bronzer here, and then I have my blush in this area, and it all kind of fuses here in the middle with foundation. Now, something that I want you to keep in mind is that you are not just going to say, okay, this looks like, you know, my like half of it is in like my blush area and half of it is in my like bronzer area. So I'm gonna pick up my bronzer and I'm gonna grab a brush and I'm just gonna pick it up and I'm gonna go and blend on top like that. No. Because your bronzer, if I just go in with that, it's going to end up looking way too saturated on my skin because it's been sheared out more and it's been blended into that foundation a little bit, right? So what we're gonna do instead is we're gonna put a little bit of this bronzer on the back of your hand. You can use like a little palette or like the freaking front of your hand. The front of your hand. Would this be called the front of your hand? That feels wrong. This feels like the underside of your hand. Okay, anyway. So I'm gonna put a little bit of that on the back of my hand. I'm gonna put a little bit of my blush on the back of my hand. What did I use? I used this new blush from Sochi today. I think that's how you say it. So I've got a little spatula. You could just use like the back of your nail, whatever. You could even just pick it up with a brush, work it into the product, and just kind of like buff it on the back of your hand. You just need to have like a little mixing palette. Then what I want to do is put a teeny bit of my foundation, right? Because all of these, so I used House Labs today, 030. All of these are the products that are in this area, in this little area right here. Okay, so you don't need a lot. Obviously you can see like very, very tiny amounts, but this is gonna be our little mixing palette, and we're going to mix our custom shade. Now, when you have an area of skin, maybe it's a scar or something, you are not going to be treating this like you would the rest of your skin, obviously. Now, there's a reason that it's not blending when you're doing the rest of your makeup. So some brushes that I would like you to think about using are like something a little smaller, a little more dense. Something like synthetic is going to be a little bit easier to use than something with like natural hair. You can try using like this shape. You could even try, like I like this brush, this for this is the Nikki LaRose N22 brush, just because it has like a little bit of a point. It's synthetic, it's pretty densely packed. You want something that's really going to like put the product down, right? Because like we're breaking some rules here. You might be thinking like, oh, when I apply my blush and my bronzer, I need to be like super light-handed. And, you know, I always say like, make sure you're holding your brush far back so that you're applying like the tiniest amount. We're changing the rules a little bit because this is an out of the box scenario. All right. Even like the tiniest little blending brush, like this guy, this is the Refer 14 mini. I don't know if they're doing minis anymore, Refer, but look how small it is. Like, and this is a natural hair brush, but it's teeny tiny, okay? So we're basically gonna be painting this on. I'm just trying to decide what brush I wanna use. I'm gonna use this brush. This is the Angela Bright AB5 small blending brush, which I just kind of like it. All right, so what I'm gonna do is kind of assess, like again, you wanna make sure that you're kind of like looking at your face in different angles. So it really does look like this half of the patch is like mostly bronzer. And then as we go in a little bit further to the center, it becomes like a little bit lighter and a little bit more like blush. So I'm actually gonna start with the blush part. So I have a little bit on my brush already. I'm just gonna take a teeny bit of the foundation and mix it in with my blush. That looks pretty good. Now you wanna be applying more than you think, okay? Because we're filling in an area. I'm really loading the brush up. Now I don't want it to be like super wet or anything, so you gotta try and find that like happy medium, but in this front part, I'm just gonna dab, okay? I'm just dabbing. So we're kind of filling in that area with a lot more product. And this is where you really have to kind of think about like painting. Like you really got to get your like artist hat on. Okay. So that's actually like really freaking good, I think. Like that looks pretty nice. And now you can see we're getting a little closer with this half of the patch. We're getting a little bit closer to the bronzer. So I'm just going to wipe my brush off. And I'm going to mix a little bit of my foundation in with my bronzer. And I'm just making sure to really load up my brush. Because again, we're not using like a ton of it, but I want to make sure that I'm able to paint it on. And I'm just going to do the same thing, just patting in that area. Okay. I'm tilting my head down. That area looks ever so slightly dark, and I need to blend around the edges. So I'm just gonna use a patting motion to blend the edges into like what I already have down. I'm gonna pick up a little bit more foundation, blend it into my bronzer shade, and then kind of tilting my head. Is there an area that needs to be lightened up a little? You know what, actually, now I can kind of see a teeny tiny bit of my contour. I use this CoverGirl contour stick. It's like, when I tilt, it's looking a little bit too warm, especially on the underside of it. Let me turn this off so you can really see it. Yeah, right in here, it's looking ever so slightly light and warm, where here, I definitely use that contour. So I'm gonna put a little bit of the contour on the back of the hand, I'm gonna mix that in. So you can kind of like go back and forth between colors. So right here. And my contour is kind of like focused here and then like blended out, but it kind of scoops this area. So I'm sort of trying to emulate that. Okay. I gotta look at this close up. Damn, dude, that looks so good. If I do say so myself. Okay. It's that simple. That's pretty much it. You might have to use a little bit more. Okay. So like if for whatever reason, something like this, a brush like this is not doing enough, something that you could consider is using like a little lip brush type brush, you know, like this is the Rougher 21 brush that I love. I like to use it for lips, but it's more of a paintbrush kind of deal, right? So it's nice and soft, it's flexible, but it's flatter. It's really gonna pick up and paint on that product. So what you can do is pick up a little bit, like pick up each of those little like colors that you mixed, place them down, and then you can go in with something like this, again, synthetic. Make sure you pick up a little bit of the product on it, because if you go in with a clean brush, sometimes it can remove product. So especially because this is an area that like has a difficult time holding on to makeup, you just want to be careful, right? You want to be careful that you're not removing product. So going with this with a little bit of like, maybe we're in the blush area of that blush combo, and just pat around the edges to blend it into the rest of the makeup. And you might have to go back and forth a little bit, okay? Like it's not typical skin. There's a reason that it's not holding the product, so you're gonna have to do a little bit extra. But if you are trying to fill in that area, this is honestly the best way to do it. Now, when you go into set, you do not want to like set your whole face and go over it with your big powder brush, okay? Because that can pull off a little bit of the product. What you wanna do first is just go in with a smaller brush, pick up your translucent powder, and really gently tap it over the top. Okay, you can even use like a little puff. This is from Huda Beauty. Just like really work that powder into the puff and just press it in. You don't need it to look chalky. You don't need to use like a ton. Is this clean? Bro, that's not clean. You don't need it to look like so powdery, but you do want to make sure that you're setting it. And then when you're going in with your like larger brush, which I just like I don't ever use, but like let's just use this as an example. When you're going in with your larger brush to set the rest of your face, when you go over that area, again, just like dust gently so that you're not picking anything up, okay? Now, you can experiment, especially if it's skin that is like a scar or something. You can experiment with trying things like eyeshadow primers, something that's going to create like a little bit more of a grip. I would suggest applying that, letting it set, and then trying that first with applying the rest of your makeup. You could do my little trick, do your full face, then in that little patch, make sure it's clean, like remove any excess stuff, make sure that it's nice and clean, then apply some eyeshadow primer. But you have to be very careful with that application because it can mix in with your foundation and then end up looking like you have an edge to it. So I would say just be very careful if you do give that a shot. There's definitely like little tricks with eyeshadow primer that you can try. Maybe you use something a little bit more smoothing. Maybe you use something with a little bit more grip. You're gonna have to experiment with that. Everybody's skin, especially when you have like the patch problem, is so different. So I'm not gonna tell you that there's one way to do it, okay? This, in my opinion, is the best way to go about it because you run the least risk of getting cakey and things mixing and then like coagulating and looking obvious. It's a really good trick, basically. And you should just not be afraid to do a little bit of painting on your face because if you're doing the rest of your base and it looks great, nobody is going to notice, a la Lisa Eldridge, when you have applied like maybe slightly more coverage in a certain area. I swear I'm not having a stroke. Like, I promise you I don't smell toast. This was such a thing that popped into my head, and I was trying to explain it to the person who commented recently, this technique, and I just figured I would make a video because I have had a lot of questions about this in particular. This is something that affects a lot of people. And I would also just like to say that, like, if, I don't know, you could also just embrace it. Like, Robert Welsh has a scar in his eyebrow and I think it looks fucking dope. So, like, you can also just embrace it, you know? Like, maybe just fill it in with glitter, like that area. Or use it as an excuse to, like, draw a heart there with liquid liner or something. You know what I mean? Like, be creative with it. I don't know. I like that kind of thing. I hope this was helpful. Let me know in the comments if you try anything. Please let me know if you do give, like, the eyeshadow primer situation a shot. I just feel like it gets messy easily, but if you're able to pull it off, I would love to know. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.